You're about to discover something that was never supposed to reach your ears. What you're hearing right now was buried for 70 years, hidden away in classified documents that powerful institutions desperately wanted to keep secret. This isn't just another conspiracy theory. This is about Albert Einstein, the greatest mind of the 20th century, and what he revealed about death just 1 year before his own. If you've ever wondered what happens when we die, if there's something beyond this life, or if consciousness itself survives the death of the body, then you need to hear every word of what's coming next. Because what Einstein confessed in 1954 will completely change how you see death, life, and your place in the universe. Hit that like button right now if you're ready to have your worldview shattered, and make sure you're subscribed because what we're uncovering today goes deeper than anything you've heard before. Picture this. It's 1954, a cold spring evening in Princeton. Einstein is dying and he knows it. His body is failing, but his mind, that incredible mind that unlocked the secrets of space and time, is still razor sharp. And in what would become his final interview, he decided to reveal something so profound, so dangerous to the established order, that it was immediately classified and buried. The journalist who conducted this interview. His name was never revealed. The transcript, locked away in a double-bottomed safe for decades. But in 2022, thanks to the lost archives of Einstein's closest friend, Dr. Gödel, these earth-shattering revelations finally saw the light of day. Here's what happened in that room 70 years ago. The unnamed journalist asked the question that was burning in everyone's mind. Professor Einstein, do you believe in the continuation of life after death? Now, you'd expect the father of modern physics to give you some scientific, measured response about the lack of evidence. Right, wrong. Einstein paused, smiled slightly, and said something that would send shockwaves through everything we think we know about death. To believe is not the right word, Einstein replied. At my age, I prefer to know. Think about that for a moment. This isn't belief we're talking about. This is knowledge. Einstein didn't think or hope or believe that consciousness survives death. He claimed to know it as a scientific fact. The journalist was stunned. How could the man who gave us the theory of relativity, who revolutionized our understanding of the physical universe, make such a claim? So he pushed back. But science, your science, has always denied the existence of the soul. Einstein's response will blow your mind. He said, not my science. Science, as understood by the masses, is limited to the observable. It is blind to what does not fit into formulas. And then came the bombshell. Einstein leaned forward and said, what I am about to say must remain between us, at least until humanity is ready. Life does not cease with death. This is not a hypothesis. This is a fact I understood not by studying physics, but by examining the mathematical structures of time and space. Let me pause here for a second. We're talking about Albert Einstein, the man who unlocked E=mc², who showed us that time and space are relative, who laid the foundation for quantum mechanics. And he's telling us that consciousness surviving death isn't mystical speculation, it's mathematical reality. But how did he explain it? Einstein used a brilliant analogy that will completely change how you think about death. He said, imagine a wave on the surface of the ocean. As long as there is wind, it exists. But even when the wind stops, the water does not disappear. The wave is no longer visible, but its energy remains in the ocean. Human consciousness is that wave. The body is merely a temporary form in which this wave manifests. When the body dies, consciousness does not cease to exist. It returns to the ocean. Are you getting this? According to Einstein, your consciousness, your very essence isn't produced by your brain. Your brain is just the temporary vessel, like the wind creating the wave. When your body dies, your consciousness doesn't disappear. It returns to the infinite ocean of universal consciousness. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had an experience that made you feel connected to something bigger than yourself? Because what Einstein discovered mathematically, mystics have been experiencing for thousands of years. Now, the journalist wasn't satisfied with metaphors. He wanted to know how this aligned with Einstein's famous theory of relativity. Einstein's answer reveals something that mainstream science still refuses to acknowledge. The theory of relativity concerns matter and energy, Einstein explained. But another element has always eluded the formulas: the observer. Consciousness itself is not a product of matter. It is primary. The entire universe exists because someone perceives it. This is huge. Einstein is saying that consciousness isn't something that emerges from complex arrangements of matter. Consciousness is fundamental to reality itself. Without consciousness, without observers, the universe as we know it couldn't exist. He continued, the double-slit paradox, the entanglement of quantum particles, all this points to one terrifying but beautiful truth. Consciousness shapes reality, and after death it does not disappear. It returns to the source, to pure perception. If you're familiar with quantum physics, you know exactly what Einstein is referring to. The double-slit experiment shows that particles behave differently when they're observed. Quantum entanglement demonstrates that particles can be instantaneously connected across vast distances. These aren't just weird quirks of physics. According to Einstein, they're proof that consciousness is woven into the very fabric of reality. And here's where it gets even more mind-blowing. When the journalist asked about God, Einstein's response will challenge everything you've been taught about divinity and the afterlife. God is not a person, not a bearded old man on a cloud, Einstein said. God is the ocean itself. The consciousness of all beings merges in this ocean. That is why no one who has ever lived disappears forever. Death is not the end. It is a return home. Think about the implications of this. Everyone who has ever lived, your ancestors, your loved ones who have passed, every human being throughout history, they're all still here, existing in this ocean of consciousness that Einstein called God. But the journalist wasn't done. He wanted to know how a rational scientist could make such metaphysical claims. Einstein's response reveals the shocking truth about what he discovered in his final years of research. You think this is faith? Einstein asked. This is knowledge. I have observed patterns. My work on the unified field theory led me to understand that there exists a single structure connecting matter, energy, and consciousness. Einstein had been working on what he called the unified field theory, an attempt to find a single equation that would explain all the forces of nature. What he discovered was that consciousness isn't separate from the physical world. It's an integral part of the fundamental structure of reality. He explained it like this. At the beginning of the 20th century, physicists thought the atom was the indivisible brick of reality. But we were mistaken. Beyond the atom lies emptiness. Beyond the emptiness lie vibrations, the hum of the vacuum, and beyond that lies mind. Einstein then brought up one of the most mysterious aspects of quantum physics, the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, also known as quantum entanglement. When two particles interact, they remain connected regardless of the distance between them. Change one particle and the other changes instantaneously, even if they're on opposite sides of the universe. This is not just physics, Einstein said. It is a hint. Connection is the foundation of existence. If particles can be connected across space, why cannot consciousnesses be connected across death? This is where Einstein's revelation becomes personal for every single one of us. He's saying that the connections we form in life, the love we share, the bonds we create, these aren't temporary chemical reactions in our brains. They're real, fundamental aspects of reality that persist beyond physical death. Einstein continued, consciousness is non-local. It is not bound to the brain. The brain is an antenna, a receiver, and the source lies beyond time and space. Death is not the destruction of the antenna. It is merely the disconnection of one channel of communication. But the ether remains, like radio waves that continue to exist even if the receiver is broken. Imagine your brain as a radio receiver. When the radio breaks, the radio waves don't disappear, they're still there, carrying information through space. According to Einstein, when your brain dies, your consciousness doesn't die with it. It returns to the field of universal consciousness that permeates all of reality. Make sure you're still with me here, because we're about to dive into why Einstein kept this knowledge secret for most of his life, and why he chose to reveal it only when he was dying. The journalist asked Einstein why he was finally speaking about these things. Einstein's response reveals the enormous responsibility that comes with this knowledge. Because time is running out, Einstein said quietly. I am already at the threshold, and the truth must not pass away with me. Humanity stands on the brink of the greatest discovery, the understanding that death is not the enemy. It is a transition. But if this truth becomes known too soon, it can be distorted, used for power, for manipulation. This explains my silence all these years. Think about what Einstein is saying here. This knowledge, that consciousness survives death, that we're all connected in a fundamental way, this isn't just interesting philosophical speculation. This is information that could completely transform human civilization. But it's also incredibly dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands. Einstein believed that humanity was entering a new phase of evolution. I feel the era of materialism is coming to an end, he said. Soon science and spirituality will merge, and then a path will open. At that moment, as if the universe itself was confirming Einstein's words, a clock in the room struck midnight 12 times. The journalist noted that these chimes seemed symbolic, as if reality itself was acknowledging the profound truth being revealed. But Einstein wasn't finished. He was about to reveal what actually happens to consciousness after death, and his answer will completely change how you think about the afterlife. You ask what awaits us on the other side, Einstein continued. The answer is both simple and complex. Everything depends on the level of awareness. Those who lived for power, pleasures, and selfishness will be tied to the lower layers of reality. Their consciousness will continue to wander among the shadows of their past. This isn't about heaven and hell in the traditional religious sense. According to Einstein, what happens after death depends entirely on the level of consciousness you've developed during your lifetime. If you've spent your life focused on material things, on ego, on taking from others, your consciousness gets trapped in lower vibrational states. But those who sought truth, who loved, who served others, Einstein continued, they will ascend, merge with the source, find peace and a new beginning. I suspect that the cycle does not end. Consciousness returns again and again to learn, to grow, and to bring light into the world. Einstein was describing reincarnation, but not in the way most people understand it. He saw it as a choice, a process of growth and learning that consciousness undergoes to evolve and develop. But not automatic, he clarified. It is a choice. Free will is the highest law, and when consciousness is ready, it can leave the cycle. Then comes what the ancients called liberation. In that moment, individuality does not die but dissolves into the ocean of light without fear, without pain, only love. Take a moment to really absorb this. Einstein is telling us that death isn't something to fear. It's a doorway to expanded consciousness. And ultimately, the goal isn't to maintain our individual identity forever, but to merge back into the source of all consciousness while retaining everything we've learned and experienced. The journalist was overwhelmed by these revelations, but he had to ask, if this is true, why don't other great minds speak about it? Why the silence? Einstein's answer reveals the tragic truth about our current civilization. Because the truth is both too simple and too dangerous, he said. The scientist fears being ridiculed. Religion fears losing power. Politicians fear losing control. Truth is free, and everyone who is accustomed to ruling fears freedom. But Einstein wasn't alone in his understanding. Some knew, he admitted, Newton, Planck, Tesla. Even Darwin, by the end of his life, suspected that something greater than mere chance lay behind evolution, but each of them chose silence or spoke in allegories. This is staggering. Some of the greatest minds in human history, the people who shaped our understanding of physics, evolution, and technology, they all suspected or knew that consciousness survives death. But they kept quiet because they knew the world wasn't ready. Einstein himself had been silent for almost his entire career. Only now, he said, as my body yields and my spirit prepares for transition, do I feel the right to speak openly. And then Einstein dropped another bombshell that will completely change how you understand his famous equation, E equals mc2. Recently, I reviewed my famous equation, Einstein said. This formula revealed to the world the equivalence of mass and energy, but there is another level which I have not spoken of publicly. Consciousness is also energy, a very subtle form of energy, and by analogy, it can be transformed. When the body dies, the energy of consciousness passes into another form, into other dimensions. Do you realize what this means? Einstein is saying that consciousness follows the same fundamental law as matter and energy. It can be transformed, but it cannot be destroyed. Just as energy cannot be created or destroyed, only changed from one form to another, consciousness cannot die, it can only transform. The journalist asked the obvious question, then death does not exist. Einstein's answer was nuanced and profound. Death exists, but not in the way people understand it. There is the death of form, the death of the body, the death of the personality connected to a particular life. But the essence is immortal. Just as energy cannot disappear, only change form, so too does consciousness not die. This means that everyone you've ever loved, everyone who has ever lived, still exists in other levels of reality. Their thoughts, emotions, experiences, everything is preserved in what Einstein called a vast field that some call the Akasha. And here's something that will blow your mind. We're connected to this field constantly. Intuition, déjà vu, premonitions, Einstein explained. These are echoes of this connection. Have you ever had a moment of perfect intuition, where you just knew something without being able to explain how? Have you ever experienced déjà vu so strong it felt like you were remembering the future? According to Einstein, these aren't random neurological glitches. They're evidence of your consciousness connecting to the vast field of universal awareness. But the journalist had to ask the question that haunts everyone. If consciousness is immortal, if we're all connected, then why is there so much suffering in the world? Einstein's answer reveals the deepest purpose behind human existence. Suffering is a school. Without the experience of pain, consciousness cannot develop. Just as muscles grow under strain, so the spirit is strengthened through trials. Each life is a lesson. Even the hardest destinies have a purpose, though the human mind cannot always understand it. This doesn't mean we should seek out suffering or accept injustice passively. What Einstein is saying is that the challenges we face in life serve a purpose in the development of consciousness. Every difficulty we overcome, every act of love we perform despite hardship, every moment we choose compassion over cruelty, these experiences shape and strengthen our consciousness. When we leave this place, Einstein continued, much will become clear, and then we will understand no one has ever truly been alone. All paths lead to unity. But Einstein wasn't finished. He had one more crucial warning for humanity, one that feels more relevant today than ever before. In recent years, I have begun to notice a dangerous trend, Einstein said, his voice becoming firm. Humanity is rapidly moving toward division. Technology advances, but morality lags behind. People forget their connection to each other. They see enemies instead of reflections of themselves. This is dangerous, very dangerous. Think about our world today. We have incredible technology. We can communicate instantly with people on the other side of the planet. We can access virtually all human knowledge with a few keystrokes. We can see what's happening anywhere in the world in real time. But are we more connected to each other? Are we more compassionate? Are we more unified? Einstein saw this coming 70 years ago. If humanity does not realize its true nature, he warned, it may not survive the next century. The choice is ours. Either we accept the truth, we are all one, or we destroy ourselves. This is why Einstein chose to give this interview. Not just to reveal the truth about consciousness and death, but to deliver a crucial message to humanity. Death is not the end. The enemy is not another person. The enemy is ignorance. Knowledge is light, and light conquers darkness. The journalist was overwhelmed by these revelations. He felt like he had witnessed something that would change not only his own life, but potentially the future of the world. Einstein's final instruction to him was simple but profound. Pass this on to those who are ready to hear, but do not impose it. Each must come to the truth on their own. But there was one more question burning in the journalist's mind, and he knew this might be his only chance to ask it. Professor, if all this is true, is there any way to prove the continuation of consciousness after death? Einstein's response reveals why mainstream science still refuses to acknowledge these truths. The scientific method requires reproducibility and measurability, but there are phenomena that cannot be repeated in a laboratory. Their proof is the very fact of their existence. Einstein pointed to evidence that already exists, but is dismissed by materialist science. Memories of past lives in children. Phenomena of quantum entanglement that cannot be explained without recognizing non-material connections. Cases of clinical death where people described events that occurred outside their physical bodies. He knew that conventional science would deny this evidence. Science will deny this until the very end, but denial is not refutation. Quantum physics has already broken a gap in the wall of materialism. Time is not absolute. Space is not empty. Matter is an illusion of density. Everything is energy. Everything is consciousness. And then Einstein made a prediction. In the future, scientists will create new devices. They will be able to record changes in the fields of consciousness after the death of the body. It is a matter of time. But Einstein emphasized that even if we had undeniable proof of life after death, it wouldn't solve the main problem. The journalist asked what that problem was. To change the way of life. To accept responsibility, Einstein replied. Understanding that death is not the end should inspire a person not to flee from fear, but to elevate their actions. If everyone knew that thoughts, words, and deeds do not disappear but continue to exist in the unified field of reality, the world would change. But is humanity ready for such knowledge? That is the question. Think about your own life for a moment. If you knew with absolute certainty that your consciousness would survive death, that every thought, word, and action would continue to exist in the fabric of reality, how would you live differently? Would you be more kind, more compassionate, more focused on love and service rather than selfishness and accumulation? As the interview was coming to an end, Einstein stood up with difficulty and said, "I am tired. The body is yielding. But the spirit, it is ready to continue. If someday, in 10, 20, 100 years, someone reads this interview, let them know I was not a mystic. I was a seeker of truth. Truth does not belong to religions. It does not belong to science. It belongs to those who seek." His final words as he shook the journalist's hand were, "Death is awakening for those who are ready to see. Protect the light." The world is not yet ready, but the time will come. The interview ended as dawn was breaking. Einstein approached the window, looked at the brightening sky, and shared one final reflection. In my youth, it seemed to me that the most important thing was to discover the laws of the universe, to find a formula that would explain everything. But over the years, I realized the most difficult task is to understand oneself, one's connection to others. Science can be comprehended, but the meaning of life each person discovers for themselves. He paused, then added words that should guide all of us. We fear death because we fear losing, but there is nothing to lose. All that is true remains with us. Love, good deeds, memories. All this moves forward even if we do not always understand how. Einstein's final message was simple: live not in fear, live in search. That is all that matters. Now, I want you to think about what you've just heard. This isn't just another story about the afterlife. This is potentially the most important information you'll ever encounter. According to one of the greatest minds in human history, consciousness doesn't die. We're all connected at the deepest level, and the love we share and the good we do in this life continues beyond death. What does this mean for how you're living right now? What does it mean for how you treat other people? What does it mean for what you choose to focus on and what you choose to ignore? If Einstein was right, then every act of kindness, every moment of genuine love, every time you choose truth over deception and compassion over cruelty, you're not just improving this life, you're contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself. The question isn't what awaits us after death. The question is how we live before it. And remember, love is the only reality that does not disappear. What do you think about Einstein's revelations? Have you had experiences that suggest consciousness is more than just brain activity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this information resonated with you, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content that challenges everything you thought you knew about reality. The truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. But when it speaks through the voice of genius, perhaps it's time we finally listened.